After we're done recording, I will make you some spaghetti. Okay? Well, we just started recording. I can't do it right now, buddy.
That should be like the subtitle to this show. To the
Like,
podcast, I'm making some spaghetti.
I'll make spaghetti when we're done. Don't blink, or else there will be spaghetti. We'll have spaghetti when we're. Yeah. With that, let's begin this. Wow, 15th episode of the Who Virgin podcast. 15. That means we've been doing this like 15 weeks. That seems like a
That's
long
awesome.
time. Yeah, that's a lot of hours put into Doctor Who and put into talking about Doctor Who. I'm both excited and scared by that.
That's
Uh,
more commitment that I put into some of my old girlfriends.
oh snap!
I
Speaking
hope
of,
they're I hope they're listening.
did you know did you know that yesterday was National X Day on Twitter?
I
So
saw
you
you
were
posted
supposed to tweet mean things to your ex.
Really?
Um,
I didn't know
yeah,
about that. Shit, I could have said a lot.
I tweeted something very nice to my ex, who I believe probably is listening, and I sent her the thing from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, where she's like, "Crank you for being a crank." Uh, Brooke's good friend listened to her podcast at Two Feminist Moms. She and Erica are great. But let's introduce everyone else before we're talking about our exes instead of our panel. With me for these 15 weeks, every week, Mark De Leon, take a bow.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, welcome.
I'm bowing.
And with us for at least a third of these episodes, returning champion Melissa Martinez.
Hello, everyone.
Melly,
Yeah,
Melly.
the voice of reason on our podcast, I like to say. You're here to set us straight on too
Yeah,
many of these things. Speaking of setting us straight, you had something you wanted to talk about really quickly before we dive into this week's episodes of Doctor Who.
yeah. I wasn't going to watch this new show on Netflix called Sense8 from the Wachowskis because I really didn't know what it was about, and I just thought, no, I watched too much TV already. A friend of mine told me I had to watch it, and I'm kind of glad I did. I only watched the pilot because recently they just put out the third season of Orange is the New Black, and I had to switch to that. But I will be watching the rest of this show, and it has Martha Jones herself in it, Freema Agyeman, and she is really, really good in this. I've only watched the one episode, but and she's billed as a guest star, even though she was pretty prominent throughout the episode. So I'm guessing she's going to be a big force in the rest of the series. It's 13 episodes. I'm hoping she's in all of them. Um, for those of you like me who did not care for Martha Jones very much, this is a really great way to see Freema's range as an actor, because we really didn't get to see it. She was so marginalized most of this season, and I think that I didn't get a sense of whether she was a really great actor or not. But she's really fantastic in this, and it's nothing like Martha Jones. I mean, the very first time we see her, she's getting it on with her girlfriend, and it's pretty graphic, I gotta say. But she's really, really fantastic, and I'm just so glad that she got a high-profile show and that she gets to be something else in my mind, in the minds of all the other people who don't like Martha. Now I can replace that memory with something else completely. So if you want to see Freema in a role that's nothing like Martha at all, then Sense8 on Netflix. I recommend it.
What's the premise of this? There's like people who they're psychically connected and they kick ass. What exactly is it?
Okay, after one episode, I can tell you I'm not completely sure. It starts off as one thing, and in true Wachowski form, it sort of moves to another. But basically, they are all psychically, they come together, and like one of them can be just doing something kind of, like working at their desk, right, during work, and all of a sudden they'll find themselves in another time and place doing what one of the other sensates is doing, and then they'll flash back to themselves, and so they're basically the people around them think they're a little cuckoo, you know, and so they're starting to kind of unravel mentally because they don't understand yet what's happening to them or why they're connected or anything like that. But we don't know why or to what end yet. And remember, I've only seen the pilot, so I don't know a ton about it yet. But it's a little, I mean, it's strange. It's the Wachowskis. What are you going to, you know, all their stuff is a little out there.
Well, I felt really burned by them after Jupiter Ascending, which is one of the worst movies I've seen this year so far. So
Wow.
I have been loath to check that out, but you are like the third or fourth person whose taste I trust to tell me that I need to check it out. So I'm going to check that out at least a little bit this week. Now, you mentioned Orange is the New Black. Have you watched the entire
Oh,
season
I
yet?
watched all 13. Yes, sir.
And
all day Friday and Saturday, pretty much. But yeah.
and give us a 10-second review of what you thought of it.
Last season was pretty dark all season and ended on a lighter note. This season was lighter all season and ended on a darker note. So it's kind of the opposite. They got rid of some of the main characters, but brought in a whole new set of new ones that are just as interesting and compelling, learning their backstories. And that's what I love about this show, is all the flashbacks that make them more than just a prisoner, but a person, you know, who had a life before they were in prison. So that's what I appreciate about the show, and they gave us a lot of that this season.
Well, I'm really grateful to Netflix, not only that they're bringing us cool things like this and Kimmy Schmidt and Daredevil, and we saw that Frank Castle is going to be joining, and it's
yes,
that's gonna be
Daredevil
awesome.
season 2.
yeah, that's gonna be really great, and perfect casting in my mind for
I agree.
who they're bringing in as well. So excited about that. And thank you, Netflix, for allowing me to binge watch Doctor Who season 3, which is what I've basically done for the last 48 hours. I watched a lot of Doctor Who here. I started with the Lazarus Experiment, and then 42, Human Nature, The Family of Blood, Blink, Utopia, The Sound of Drums, and Last of the Time Lords. So I took Mark's challenge. I finished the season, which was a lot less hard than I thought it was going to be, because essentially, like, Lazarus and 42 are on their own, and Blink is on its own, but then Human Nature and Family of Blood is essentially one storyline, and Utopia is kind of leads into The Sound of Drums and Last of the Time Lords, but those last two are specifically like, that's just one episode in my mind. But
I think the
those
last
all-
three go together.
Yeah.
There's a definite arc for all three of them.
Yeah, so that was actually really easy. It didn't feel like, ironically, this felt like less of a slog than just watching the first 5 episodes of this season, which I think says something about how it picked up. Speaking of picking up, the Lazarus Experiment, I felt kind of burned after last week's episodes, and this brought me back, and I actually kind of like this episode. Maybe you both can tell me where I'm wrong here, but this felt like a good classic science fiction story about, you know, the nature of scientific inquiry and being able to do something technologically, but should we do it morally? What are the effects that we can't possibly imagine from that? And speaking of, hey, Jurassic World came out this week, which that seemed like an apt companion piece for this episode of, like, we really shouldn't have tried to do that to de-age ourselves, and at what price does that immortality or that those trappings of immortality come? And those threads came up a lot more in the rest of the season, and so I really like this episode. Martha, actually, it felt like, got her first ever thing to do, where she was actually really clever. She got Dr. Lazarus to kiss her hand, thereby getting a DNA sample, and she's able to analyze the DNA sample with her medical training. It's like, oh, Martha, you finally did something good. Good job. So that's how I felt about it.
Yeah, like I said last week, they finally start utilizing Martha in a smart way. She's supposed to be intelligent. So that right there, what you said, where she kind of tricks Lazarus into kissing her hand, it's perfect. She's that kind of person. She's real smart. She can plan these things out. As for the episode, I thought it was pretty good. There's that whole thing with Kurt Vonnegut where he says that we mess around with science without worrying about the cost. The doctor kind of gives that warning to Lazarus where he tells him, "You don't understand the technology you're using." And sure enough, it backfires. So on those themes, it was pretty good. The episode was pretty good. What I didn't like though was the inclusion of Martha's family. I think they tried too hard to do what they did with Rose. They tried, and this is a theme that goes on with the rest of the episodes. They try to give Martha's mother this great importance, and she comes off as a nag the whole way through.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I didn't like about this episode because it introduced us to Martha's mother, and I kind of wish they never did because I really don't like her character. But other than that, those themes about messing with science that we do not understand, humanity's obsession with immortality, great. Those are great, great topics, and it brought the season around because I remember watching this episode and thinking, okay, it's getting better because I pretty much hated the entire first part of this season. But I think this is where they turn it around.
Yeah, I liked it overall. I didn't like when Dr. Lazarus kind of turns into that creature at the end. That's one of the, it's like big skeleton with a tiny head and a tail. It's just like, that's one of those facepalm Doctor Who monsters. It's not as bad as like, what was that one?
The Spider Woman.
Gorbatron or yeah, the Empress or whatever, the spider thing. Yeah, not as bad as those, but still kind of facepalmy, a little. And I love that Mark Gatiss was in it. I think I mentioned before that I really like him. He's one of the writers on the show, and he's actually a writing partner of Stephen Moffat, who's now the showrunner. And they co-created Sherlock together for the BBC, and he plays Mycroft.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he's in even Game of Thrones. He was in last week. He's the Iron Bank guy. So yeah, I mean that's a wet blanket character. Like he's just I don't even know how else to describe him. But I really like him as an actor, so I'm glad he got a prominent spot in this episode. And this was a marked improvement for me over the previous episodes. And yes, finally, Martha was relevant this episode. The fact that she was a doctor was relevant, or that she's a medical student, rather, is relevant, finally. Because up until now, it just felt like lip service, that they just happened to make her smart and have this career track that she's obviously abandoned. But, it was, a marked improvement. The only real thing I didn't like was just that weird monster hybrid skeleton thing. That didn't really work for me, but it's a minor quibble compared to the first few episodes of the season.
Yeah, I completely agree. That giant scorpion monster thing, it kind of took me out of it, but my rule of thumb is this, that I go back to, I think it's the first season of Star Trek The Next Generation, and there's an episode about this giant conspiracy of aliens taking over the Federation, and at the very end, there's the dude, and he's like eating this bug, and then they shoot him with the phasers, and there's this giant screaming monster that like explodes out of his chest, and they have to shoot it again. And I'm like, I don't know whether this was the worst thing I've ever seen or the best. It's so ridiculous, but I'm going to forgive it because the surrounding science fiction kind of theory and discussion was so important, and so I can forgive the giant screaming bug monster and the bug eating to get to that. So I think that's I don't know. I think when dealing especially with sci-fi, especially with older science fiction, we kind of have to allow it to not not be as spectacular as, well, Jurassic World, which, if have either of you seen that yet, by
Yeah,
any chance?
I did. Uh-oh, I didn't hear. I
Oh,
can't.
yeah, I can't hear Mark. Uh-oh. Mark, we've lost your...
Audio.
Let me make sure I haven't muted. I haven't muted you.
Uh-oh.
Ruh-roh. We can't do this
Hey,
without Mark.
I kind of like this version of Marco. I don't have to hear what he's talking about.
Oh, snap.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, hell, he's back.
Yeah, now we can hear you now.
Okay, cool. All right.
Okay, I'm gonna turn you back up because you went down in volume with the heads. Okay, now we
Okay.
go. Uh, so tell us about Jurassic World.
I am. It. Shoot. I guess since I really didn't like Jurassic Park 3, I haven't been all that excited about wanting to watch this. And I saw your podcast, by the way, and while I enjoyed what you guys were talking about, it seemed like I've already seen this, and I'm not sure I want to sit through a movie that I've already seen. I I'm probably wrong, but I get this feeling that I'm gonna have a sense of deja vu, and that's gonna take me out completely.
It's absolutely true. Thanks for plugging my other podcast, Mark. Go check out
Boris,
boardishellcast.com and listen to our review of Jurassic World and our tribute to Christopher Lee. But yeah, that was kind of where Adam and I ended up on this, was that this was very faithful to the original, in that they were really trying to recreate a Steven Spielberg movie with a John Williams score. It was just done by Colin Trevorrow and Michael Giacchino instead. And so it's good, but we're not treading any new ground, and we also don't have. We really should have had Dr. Ian Malcolm in there saying, "You, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not that they could do something to think if they should."
good.
And there was no one in there to give us that message, which was, essentially the message of this Doctor Who episode as well. I felt, but um, I liked it. It's destroying it at the box office. They may have the best Friday opening of any movie ever, and they're like already at $500 million worldwide.
That's
So
insane.
that is
My
insane.
my daughter loved it. My father took my daughter to go see it yesterday,
You
and
took
she loved it.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow.
she wasn't scared or anything. She said it was a lot of fun.
And
But
that's the thing. Don't try and dissect this movie. Just go get your bucket of popcorn and sit back and just enjoy. If you try to do like what we're doing with Doctor Who right now and dissect things, then you're just gonna find all kinds of bad shit. Just go and enjoy it. That's what you have to do.
yeah, but here's the thing. I don't have to dissect because at a certain point, it doesn't make sense. Like we've already encountered all sorts of destruction in the first three Jurassic Park movies. Why would anybody in their right mind open up a park again? And
But that's
really,
the whole point.
no, hold on. And I'm not even done yet. Like, really, you can train reptiles to do your bidding? I,
Yeah.
I
No,
don't
come on.
know.
Dinosaurs are just birds minus hundreds of millions of years of evolution. And you can get little baby birds to imprint on someone, and make them think that that's their mother, and they will teach them to fly and to hunt look, in a world where they are stupid enough to open up another Jurassic Park, where they already have created dinosaurs using frog DNA in the first movie 20 years ago, and where things have already gone horribly wrong 3 times, including a T-Rex rampaging through the streets of San Diego. Like, come on. If you've bought into that world,
Okay.
then
Yeah.
there really isn't anything in my mind that you can suspend your disbelief over.
At that point, when the T-Rex destroyed San Diego, um, and it happened, they put the islands on lockdown, which is why we got part 3, and nobody's around those islands because they were put on lockdown. What governments in the world are going to be opening up these islands?
Costa Rica, obviously.
Governments, hello, that's all you had to say. It's the government. It's politicians. All you got to do is line their pockets, and come on. It's Central America, the very poor. These people, they'll take anything.
And you had Vincent D'Onofrio working for the military, trying to figure out if you can train raptors to weaponize them, and saying stuff like, whoa, we really should have had these guys at Tora Bora.
Okay, that's making it even worse.
But he's not like chewing the scenery too much like he normally does. He's actually a little restrained, which I was amazed at, really.
But there's already the poorest continent in the world where it's impossible to get you to see, almost impossible to get into to see rhinoceros and apes, and we have Costa Rica that's opening the. It hurts my brain.
You're thinking too much.
You're
thinking too much.
I agree, and honestly, I'm probably gonna watch this, but I'm just, for some reason, I'm not too excited about this at all.
That's fine. Don't be excited by it. You just enjoy being your wet blanket, and you don't have to enjoy seeing the awesome dinosaurs rampaging and Chris Pratt training them. That's fine. You don't have to see it.
I love me some Chris Pratt.
The dinosaurs are the reason to go. It's a lot of fun if you just let it go. Make like Elsa and let it go. Just that's all you can do.
All right, I'll try that.
All right. Speaking of letting it go, episode 42, which I was like, 42? Oh, life, the universe, and everything? What's that mean? And then I figured out, this episode is occurring in real time. 42 is the countdown clock until they crash into the sun.
You didn't like it?
I felt like this was a mishmash of previous episodes where they had done certain things better. I felt like there were elements of the Satan pit in here.
Yes.
And I just kind of like that with, I don't know, the Daft Punk fire creatures. I don't know. I didn't get really drawn into it. So
I thought
tell me I'm wrong.
I thought it borrowed heavily from Danny Boyle's Sunshine, which of course is superior to this episode. But I saw a lot of Danny Boyle's Sunshine in this episode, and I did see a lot of the Satan's Pit in here too. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty cool.
Sunshine's an excellent movie, very underrated. I don't know why more people didn't see it. But I didn't see it till long after I saw this episode, so I don't have that comparison to make. This was okay. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It's just kind of there. You know what I mean? It's definitely still a step up, continuing where the Lazarus Pit left off, like stepping up from the first few episodes that were just kind of hard to get through. But I don't really have much to say about it. You know what I mean? It's sort of there.
The one thing that was most remarkable to me about this was I was starting to track the passage of time of when the show came out by noticing what kind of cell phones they were using.
Oh.
Where, Rose had like a candy bar cell phone, and now Martha's got one of those Razor flip phones. And then this is really hilarious. When she calls her mom, by the way, Mrs. Jones, when you are trying to call your daughter and say, don't hang out with this guy, he's dangerous, that is bad parenting. You're always going to get her to follow that guy more. It's like, fine, Mom, I'll do what I want. I'll hang out with this guy.
Right.
But anyway, Mrs. Jones has a Sony Ericsson Walkman phone, and I'm like, I had that phone. That was my phone. That was 2007. I remember when I had that phone and how much fun I had with it because it played MP3 ringtones and phones didn't yet play MP3 ringtones yet. So I was very pleased. I hunted for that phone for a long time.
Is
Dental-
Ericsson even around anymore?
Gentlemen, I will be right back. Continue.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think
No.
is Ericsson even a company? I don't think Sony's making phones anymore either. Maybe they should. Huh. That's an interesting question. Let's look that up. Does Sony Ericsson still make a phone? Yeah. Oh, Xperia. Um, yeah, I guess they do. I wouldn't know because I haven't owned anything that wasn't a Samsung in like 4 years.
Oh
So
wow, they still do make their phones. Wow.
yeah, they do
Huh.
make phones. That's
And
not
the
a bad looking phone.
Well, they have the mixed Walkman.
Oh. I need to get a new Walkman or something because my iPod got stolen and I don't have anything that can yet replace it.
How in the world did that happen?
How did that happen? When we were moving, um, so the movers came and they were loading stuff inside the house. I also had boxes in my car and other things in my car, and I was unloading from that. And then the movers showed up, and I had to be inside the house and was telling them where to put everything. And I'd forgotten to lock my car, and it was parked on the street. And at that same time, school let out, and so I think just punk kids walking along the street saw I had an iPod and opened up my door and grabbed it.
That's a
So,
wonderful neighborhood you moved into.
you know, it's a great neighborhood. I think that was just a random bad occurrence, and I don't know. God's obviously punishing me for something.
Yeah.
It's like it wasn't enough that I had to move or had to go through all this other crap. I also lost my iPod that is now irreplaceable because they don't make them anymore.
What
Um,
have you done?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I could go spend $350 on the aftermarket for one, but
So
that
they
just
really
seems
did stop making iPods?
they stopped making the iPod Classics with the big hard drives, and I've got so much music if I could not function without at least 80 gigabytes of my music. I've got 120 gigabytes of music, but I could probably do without I could be like, okay, I'm not gonna load all of this on my iPod because I don't need to be able to listen to all of that. But um, there's a good 80 gigabytes of stuff that I want to be able to have at my fingertips at all time.
Who's ripping off an iPod Classic?
Good question.
Who is this person?
I don't know. Again, that's why I'm thinking is a stupid kid who
Yeah,
just saw it and decided that's what they were gonna do.
that sucks.
iPod Talk brought to you by Apple and
Apple.
Sony Ericsson.
Well,
Um,
I hope they're enjoying Britney Spears.
and all that. They have the complete works of Toad the Wet Sprocket, including a ton of live and unreleased stuff. So I really hope whatever 12-year-old stole my iPod enjoys all of that classic music from the 90s.
I like Toad.
That's my favorite band. I love
Really,
them.
Toad? Really?
Yeah. Yeah. They're I'm just a mellow white boy. I like listening to Toad the Wet Sprocket and jamming out.
I'm actually, and I'm gonna catch a lot of flack for this, but I'm actually a big Hootie and the Blowfish fan.
Oh, I still love Hootie.
All right, awesome. Okay, because that where I used to work, I used to catch a lot of flack for that.
That's I don't know. That's one of those where you can impress a lot of people at karaoke by rocking a Hootie song. And people are like, "Oh yeah, I forgot that this at one time was actually really good."
It was fun.
She sits alone my lamppost, Trying to run along, escape from mine.
You just do vowels, like in Tej.
Yeah, you just
Oh,
gotta.
yeah, oh. Yeah, no, I dig it. The follow-up album, Fairweather Johnson, was it called?
Yeah, Fairweather Johnson.
Yeah,
Not as good.
I really dug that album.
Really?
I don't know why. It hit a nerve with me, especially that one song towards the end, Tootie, which I have no idea what it's about, but it just sounds great.
I don't know. It was really funny because like Toad the Wet Sprocket for a while, like every single band that opened for them got big. So like
Ah,
first they were doing this tour, and Gin Blossoms was opening for them, and like no one had heard of Gin Blossoms. And then like Hey Jealousy popped up on the radio, and then that was huge.
no.
And then Gin Blossoms had to leave because they were like now a bigger band than Toad the Wet Sprocket. So then uh, they started touring with Rusted Root, and then that "Send Me on My Way" song came out, and so they left too. And then they did Hootie and the Blowfish, and Hootie blew up. But it was hilarious because it was like all these bands that I like knew about because they were opening for Toad, and I'm like, hey, this is a good band, and nope.
Yeah, that happened to Mudhoney during the grunge, well,
Oh
prior to
yeah,
the grunge explosion. Mudhoney is actually pretty damn good, and they had a huge following, but it was Nirvana and Soundgarden that got all the attention, and Pearl Jam.
yeah, and everyone expected Mudhoney to blow up, and they never did.
Yeah.
It's always kind of interesting. I don't know. I never really liked them for whatever reason. They just never really struck a struck something for me. To this day, the only Mudhoney song that I actually own is the song on the single soundtrack, which is kind of a self-referential song at this point, where they're singing about how they're so overblown.
Mm.
Everybody loves us, and everybody loves our sound.
Yeah.
Hey, 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 hey! Do, 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 do.
I dug them. I liked their music. They always seemed a bit more serious though than the rest of the bands around them.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe that was it.
Maybe. I don't know. Every single one of those bands, it was like it. I. It was like. It's like okay, you could take like every single band that was signed to Sub Pop in like 1990 or 1991, and eventually they all had like top 10 hits, and it was just like waiting around for it to happen. It's like oh okay, finally, Dinosaur Jr.
Dinosaur
has a
Jr.
big hit.
I remember them. You know, it's so weird. When it comes to music, the hair bands defined my early youth, elementary. And
Yep.
then there was heavy metal, which defined my middle school years up until maybe my freshman, sophomore year. And then all the grunge alternative stuff defined my late high school, college years. And
Yep.
it's weird because I never even really thought about it. But now every time I hear what I hate is that they're considered classics now. So when when I listen to classic radio and the songs pop up, I'm like, oh, I know what year that was. It's just so weird. I guess this whole growing up business is weird.
I know it's super weird, especially as we're like getting closer and closer to 40, and it's like, oh my gosh, I feel old. Like I felt really old thinking that the first Jurassic Park came out 20 years ago. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
20 years? Oh, no way.
You know, it's kind of weird because when Jurassic World promotion started to come out, I'm like, it's not like Jurassic Park was a long time ago. And then I started thinking, wait a minute, you moron. Yes, it was. It was a
Yeah, I
very
know.
long time ago.
Totally, 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 totally. That just, I don't know. Uh, man. Is Melissa back yet? Are we
Where's Melly?
Are we have we lost her for a long time? Because I don't know. Should we? She said to keep going, but I kind of didn't want to because I'm like, I
Let
don't
me
know.
text her. Where's her number?
So I wanted to pile on the Martha Jones hate for human nature. The
But no, okay, no, that's not her fault.
Exactly. It's not her fault, but
And I didn't like the human nature thread.
exactly.
Yeah, the human
Hello?
nature. Oh, there you
Oh,
are.
yay! Perfect.
We were talking shit about you.
Oh, okay.
No, we were talking about how I wanted you here to talk crap about Martha Jones for human nature. So I
Oh,
didn't want to. We started talking about iPods and music, and
you're gonna have a lot of editing to do.
oh, that's
Dinosaur
fine.
Jr.
I
came
mean,
up.
none of that's going on the actual show. That's fine.
Yeah.
But it's just like take out a big 5 minute chunk from right when you say, "Wait a minute, I'll be right back," and then whoosh to this
Yeah.
moment
I'm
right
sorry,
now.
it's just a minor family emergency.
Oh no.
It's okay. It's just that my sister, she's been in Corpus with my nephews this weekend, and
Hmm.
one of her boys sliced his finger open, and Pendeja doesn't have her insurance information with her. I mean, when you travel with kids, what's one of the first things you do, you know? So she had to call and try and get the insurance information, and she panics. My sister has terrible panic attacks. She doesn't know how to I mean, even earaches, she starts to panic. And I mean, these are kids. Of course, they're gonna have earaches, you know. Uh, but she panics at everything. Like panic attack has to be medicated. You know what I'm saying?
That's weird.
Uh,
Yeah.
so and then she's out of town. She's like, I want my mommy. And I'm like, oh my God, she's 36 and she wants her mommy. Be a mother yourself. Shut up. It's just like, I mean, that sounds mean that I'm saying that, but I've dealt with this her entire life. You know what I'm saying? I mean, she's just always been a panicker, and you know, it's my mom just texted me a picture, and this is a cut the size of like a quarter.
Oh,
Mm.
okay.
So it's big, but it's not the it's like you probably need a stitch or two, but it's not like the end of the world.
Yeah, my dad would be so rub dirt in it. I had a
No, that's the rule of thumb. Like you go anywhere, you take some form of ID um and your medical insurance card. Like if nothing else, you
oh
gotta.
yeah.
I don't know. That's that's what I do.
I did we lose Smelly Melly again?
I think we did.
Ah, where'd she go?
Now we can really talk trash about her.
Man, let's stop talking about it. No, Melly's pretty awesome. Uh, God, so these two episodes, I just didn't like them at all. Did you notice that the Khaleesi's brother is on?
Yeah, oh yeah. I was gonna say, and there's I was gonna mention this when we were talking about Mark Gatiss being on Game of Thrones, that there's there's Game of Thrones crossovers all over this episode or
Right.
all over this season, um, because Thomas Sangster, he's what's his name? He's the other creepy little kid who's hanging out with Bran Stark.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We'll talk about that. We'll wait
Yeah,
till she
the
gets back because I
yeah
wanna.
the one who what do they call those? The ones that can transfer.
Skinwalkers?
Is that what they're called?
Is that
I
Skinwalker? Here,
hear.
let me.
Hey, are you back?
Yeah, I got kicked off somehow. This happens like once every week. I don't understand. Like, it's like not a podcast unless I get kicked out at some point. I have to come back. Very strange.
It's your
Uh,
That's
AT
true.
connection.
yeah, so sorry for the interruptions, guys, but it looks like everything's okay with my family. It's just my mom had to call and vent because my sister's panicking and, uh, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's a little cut, but apparently it was gushing, and I could see how that might panic any parent. But my sister's like master panicker, you know what I mean? And so yeah, it was a situation. But she just relies on my mom to do all the paperwork stuff all the time. That's why she didn't even think to have her insurance card with her. It's just so dumb.
Yeah.
So
Wargs,
yeah,
that's what they're called. I
but
don't know. My mind works weird.
anyway, okay, so we were talking about 42, which I thought was just okay. And what else did y'all get to while I was gone?
We were just talking about cell phones, and that's when you dropped off. But that was like the last thing that I really had to say about it was
Oh, you guys could
um,
have kept going. I'm sorry that
no, because that was really all I had to say about that was really all I had to say about 42. Let's wrap up 42 really quickly, and then we'll move on to human nature because we wanted you to be here to have some Martha talk about that.
The Martha
Um,
bet.
so, last thoughts about 42.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was at least fun. There was a lot of repetition in terms of other episodes, and since I had seen Sunshine, which was released that same year of the Doctor Who season, I saw the parallels there, and I thought it was kind of cool. Um, it's not a great episode, but it's far from being bad, which are the following two episodes.
I think I'm gonna have to go see Sunshine, is what I'm getting out of this.
You haven't seen
Okay,
Sunshine?
yes, it's really good.
Oh,
It's got
excellent.
Captain
really?
America in it.
Oh,
You
really?
Yeah,
Sunshine.
Chris Evans
Uh,
is in it, and he's really good. Like that was the first time I saw him do something that wasn't
yes.
Marvel related because I'd only seen him as
Human Torch.
yeah, and that's just
Yeah. No,
he's
I'm with you.
really a good actor. He's a
Yes.
really good actor.
Yeah, Sunshine was the movie that made me like Chris Evans because
Yeah,
I didn't really care about him and I thought he was overly cocky for the Human Torch. There's so
is
much
that
to say about that
possible?
those two stupid movies. But when I saw him in this movie, I said, "Oh, this guy can act. This guy's good."
hmm
And the whole movie's just great.
Yeah,
Kevin Murphy was awesome,
very cerebral,
right?
very good. But I hadn't
You haven't
seen it
seen it,
before
right?
I saw this, so. But I see the parallels you're talking about, and there's also a parallel. There was a show; it only ran for 2 seasons on Sci-Fi, called Stargate Universe. A lot of
Oh,
Stargate
yes,
fans
Oh, yeah.
didn't like it, but I really liked that show. It was like a darker Stargate. I
I
enjoyed
did.
it.
I
Uh,
liked it a lot.
and there were some parallels there, how the ship recharged and stuff. So yeah, this is but as an episode altogether, it's okay. It's pretty good. And for this season, it's fantastic. But
Yes.
in any other season, I think it would have been a little not throwaway exactly, but maybe just mediocre. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're
Totally.
right. For this season, it's one of the better episodes.
Hey, you
Yeah.
know what? That's true. Compared to the rest of this season, I will give it that. It is better than most of the rest. On to what is probably the dregs of this season,
Uh,
Human Nature and the Family of Blood. I felt like overall this was just so much wasted opportunity. It felt like they were trying to say something about war and the futility of war. It felt like they were trying to say something about humanity. They were trying to say something about race relations and sexism, and it just every single one of those was fail, 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 fail. Um, I when I was looking into this, I found out that this was based on a novel written in the 90s. So it wasn't even written Martha, and then they adapted it to her, um, which I guess kind of, I don't know, maybe that explains some of this, where it felt just kind of hackneyed and weird and out of place, and why Martha was literally disempowered and made to, literally put into a place of oppression, and that felt really not good.
right. Um, there's so much about this episode and the following that I just don't like. Um, the first and foremost, Martha being the servant is just,
Ugh.
and then there's that whole thing where she's talking to Joan, right? And she's saying, I'm a doctor. She's like, no, you're not. You're a woman. And besides, the color of your skin. And I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
well, I guess
Yep.
they had to go there, but I don't think they really had. Well, it was just bad. It was, to me, it was done in poor taste. But what really bothers me is that I think they tried to redo or catch lightning like they did with the motherless child, well, the empty child.
Hmm.
The whole with the gas mask. Are you my mummy? I think they tried to go for that
Yep.
feel with a different spin to it, and it just didn't work at all. I didn't like the villains either. I thought they
Yeah.
hammed it up. The Khaleesi's brother, whatever his name is, when he's talking, he's doing this weird stare and talking like, "There's a good girl." Just
Father
uh,
of mine, mother of
yeah,
mine.
mother of mine, and everything failed. Everything failed, and the worst part is that it's a two-parter. So
Yeah.
I had to sit through 2 weeks of this dribble, and none of it worked.
No, I have nothing good really to say. This is the two episodes where Martha became Mammy. It's like, um,
Yep.
you remember a couple weeks ago, I think it was when we were discussing Torchwood, where I said that I thought Russell T Davies had a certain tone deafness to him. I feel like these are the episodes where somebody cut his ears off. It's just like it went further. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? He's not just tone deaf anymore. The man has no ears. He just, um, I mean, I said this last week when I was basically like just bludgeoning the whole Martha thing, where they had an opportunity with the first companion of color to really go there and have some great stories and even maybe be a little bit about like say something about society and racial tension and whatever, but they purposely kept taking them to times where she would be marginalized, and this is a prime example. The turn of the century, 1900s, of course she's going to be marginalized. At least she's not a slave. If they had done one in the 1860s or 1850s and she had been a slave, I would have just turned it off. I would have been like, screw you. I would just have stopped watching. But they kept putting her in situations where she would largely be marginalized, and this is a prime example. And then to make it a two-parter, so we had to see it for 2 episodes. And her frustration was palpable, being in this situation that she was. And then to have to watch the doctor fall in love with this other girl or something, they're just like adding salt to her wounds. You know what I'm saying? Because she's already clearly just like fallen for the doctor, and he clearly has no interest in her, and now you're just rubbing it in, by making her watch as he starts falling. What's her name, Joan or whatever?
Right,
um
Joan.
yeah, it's like, why don't you just make her suffering complete? Why don't you just kill her at this point? I mean, it's such a regression, because she looked like maybe for 2 episodes she was getting a better portrayal, like she was having more to do, and then to regress like this to a maid.
It's bad.
Yeah,
It's
I
really bad.
mean, completely tone deaf. This is like, this is a huge. These 2 episodes are a huge problem that I have with Martha on the whole.
Well, and this episode, and then there's a couple of other instances through the rest of the season where she really is absolutely pining for the doctor, and it's like,
Stop it already.
we didn't
Hmm.
hate Rose, but Rose was never so desperate or so cloying or so overt, and this was just very sad. And when we get to the final episode, we'll talk about Martha's last speech and how that turns it all around. But it's so wasted at this point, and it oh, just bothered me so much. But I agree that there were a couple things worth seeing in this episode, and yeah, it was cool seeing Harry Lloyd, Khaleesi's brother, in here. Another actor who I really like, Thomas Sangster, who was the little kid, the one who ended up with the watch at the end, and he's also on Game of Thrones. He plays. Am I pronouncing this right? Jojen Reed.
Yes.
He's he's the one who is hanging out with Bran Stark and teaching him how to be a skinwalker and all that. Now on top of that, he's also the voice of Ferb on Phineas and Ferb, and I love that show so much and shed a little tear at their final episode this week. So
I did not
thank
know
you.
he was Ferb. Huh.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't talk very much, so
Oh, yeah.
the other thing, I don't know if you ever saw this movie, Mark, Nowhere Boy, about
Yes.
John Lennon, and
Yes.
he was Paul McCartney.
Yes.
Yeah. So
And it was a really good movie.
yeah, I liked that movie a lot, and I liked him in it, even though he doesn't really look that much like Paul McCartney. But that's okay. I thought he played that.
I think he embodied him well because Paul McCartney's kind of soft-spoken
And he
there's
was
nothing threatening about him.
Yeah, and he was kind of nerdy, and that was the whole thing.
He also comes out in Maze Runner as Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you said Skinwalker, but I thought he was a warg.
A warg, that's what I mean.
Oh, okay.
Not Skinwalker. What am I talking about?
I don't know. That's it. Kind of threw me off, and I was like, "What?"
I'm dumb. Don't trust me when I talk about Game of Thrones because I've seen the episodes. I kind of know what's going on, but geez, I haven't even seen anything this season, so I'm by no means like a Game of Thrones expert. So don't listen to me when I'm talking about Game of Thrones.
Oh, and also, Sangster, I think, had one of the best roles in Love Actually.
Oh yeah, and he is actually Hugh Grant's nephew.
Really?
Or yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh no, he's his second cousin, once removed. There we go. So, that's kind of funny. That's another one of those weird things, like how Ewan
The
McGregor.
kid who plays the drums, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like how Ewan McGregor is Dennis Lawson's nephew.
I did not know that. That's weird.
Yeah. That's how he got the part of Obi-Wan. Is he came in and he's like, you have to cast me in this because Dennis was my uncle. And George Lucas was like, oh well, then I guess we do. And he could do the.
Well, it worked out perfectly, but it would have been kind of cool. He would have been like Wedge's grandfather or something. That would have been kind of.
Like that.
It worked out perfectly though.
Yeah.
He's a great.
For those who don't know who we're talking about, Dennis Lawson played Wedge Antilles, a minor but very beloved character in these original Star Wars saga. Wedge, we love you, Wedge.
Wedge is awesome.
Okay. Anything more that we want to say to talk trash about the Family of Blood?
It was just horrible.
Yeah.
There's nothing about it that I remember liking. And you know what? I hate this whole lovey-dovey thing that the Doctor had to fall in love. And going back to making Martha feel bad, he falls in love with somebody who thinks of Martha as a lesser person because of the color of her skin.
Yes.
That's like really piling up. There's just so much wrong about these two episodes that if I never see them again, I'm actually okay with that.
Yeah.
I think I might feel the same way. With that, we're on to Blink, but first we're going to take a short little break, and on the other side, we went from the worst episode, and we're going to go to the best episode. And after we're done with Doctor Who, we are going to talk about Pixar's Inside Out. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. All right. Anyone need to take another little break real quick?
Any more family emergencies, Melissa?
No, I hope not. God.
Now would be the proper time to have a family emergency if you felt. Okay.
Well, if you give me permission, I'll just see if anybody needs an amputation or something.
Yes, I give you permission.
Call my uncles and shit and see.
Quick, I have a 5-minute break from my podcast.
Show up with gloves.
If you need anything, I got to get back because Andy, he's a real taskmaster. That guy. All right. Welcome back to the second half of Who Virgin episode 15, and we're gonna get into Blink. And man, you two did not over oversell this. You did not
Yay.
blow it up too
Awesome.
much. I was beyond blown away. This is not only the best thing I have seen of Doctor Who thus far. This is one of the best hours of television that I've experienced any time in the last decade. I absolutely. I was trying to think what else ranks up there with this for me, and not a whole lot. It's really really tough. Maybe some Daredevil, but that's the only thing I'm thinking of because it's so recent. But just really, really good.
Yeah, this episode has everything, and it's the added bonus that we don't get to see the Doctor all that much, and you still get so much. We get an explanation of being locked in time, fixed points in time, the consequences for messing with fixed points, the Doctor pretty much being powerless, and confronting an enemy that you really have no idea how to beat. There is a complete sense of danger throughout the entire episode, and the way that it's resolved is almost genius. Not almost, it is genius.
I literally got scared. I mean, I have not been scared by something in theaters on TV in a long time, but this was actually frightening.
Mhm. The psychological aspect of this, and it's so weird after seeing such crap episodes right before it. It feels like this oasis in the desert or something. It was just so,
Yes.
and part of it too. Like last week when I worried that maybe we'd oversold it to you a little, um, because I thought to myself, well, the few episodes up to that were so bad that maybe in my mind it was just better than it was. But I've watched this episode multiple times on its own and not in a row, or anything like that. And so it still kind of freaks me out. And the way they use the Weeping Angels later, you're gonna see they don't
Yeah.
overuse them like the Daleks or anything, which is good. They pop up a couple more times, but it's done so well, and it sort of expands that little universe a little of Weeping Angels, that it's not only did they create something wholly imaginative, but they're really managing it well throughout the rest of the series. I mean, there's just so much to love about it, and the fact that these creepy angel-looking things, they're kind of everywhere in life. You know what I mean? You think about it when you see these statues now, and living in a city, and I think Margot can attest to this, that is so Catholic with
They're everywhere.
they're everywhere. It's like, I mean, really. And I was alone. I remember I was alone, and I think I had just moved into this apartment, and I didn't have everything here when I watched it, and so I had all these boxes, and it was half empty, my apartment still, so it had that little creepy just moving in vibe going, and so everything just added up to really just, yeah, spectacular episode. It was just so nice after the crap of the last two. Granted, we didn't see a lot of Martha, we didn't see a lot of the Doctor either, and that was okay. And it was like Carrie Mulligan before she became Carrie Mulligan, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, and I even love the names like Sally Sparrow and Kathy Nightingale. Even the names, like, no, all the detail. You know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't overlook any of the minutia. It was all just so well done. Yeah. Oh, love
It
it.
it is so well done and so scary that my daughter hasn't seen it yet, and I'm gonna wait for her to see it because I think something like this would scare a kid
Yeah.
like badly. But this is written by Stephen Moffat, and this is his preview of what's to come. You can clearly see the difference in terms of villainy of what Russell T Davies employed and what Stephen Moffat employs. Moffat likes to come at you playing mind games, and this is just a complete, like, it's a mind fuck. It really is. because it screws with you, and it gives you a taste for what's coming. There is another group of villains that he's going to use in about what 2 seasons from now, called the Silence, and it's
Oh, yes.
equally creepy.
Yes.
Uh, just when you think that you can't do better than the Weeping Angels, he kicks it up a notch. So this is Moffat. This is his entrance into the Doctor Who world, showing you what he can do and promising you that it's going to get better. So this episode I love. I think it's still probably the gold standard for Doctor Who episodes.
It's my favorite of all time, easily, and I've seen everything, all the way through this last season, and I still don't think there's anything. There's some episodes that are really great coming up, uh, but this one, yeah, it's like I said, the oasis in the desert that is season 3. That there's, oh, and it's still, yeah. I don't get nightmares. I mean, I didn't wake up like screaming or in a sweat, but it creeped me out.
Yeah.
And I don't get creeped out easily at all. I'm one of those people who love scary movies, who will watch every scary movie out there, even if it looks stupid, just because I'm trying to see if they can scare me, and they almost never do. I mean, my best friend gets mad at me because I don't jump. Because, like, when we see a scary movie, half the time when something was supposed to be funny or scary, I'll laugh because it wasn't funny and it was meant to be. And she's all frightened and stuff. She gets mad at me, really mad. So I'm not an easy scare. I do not creep out easily, but this creeped me out. It did. And I still think of it every time I see one of these damn statues, which is often.
Yeah.
It will never leave my mind, and I'm okay with that because it's awesome, you know? Okay, I'm done gushing, I think.
Okay, give me 15, give me 2 minutes. Hang on just a second, you guys.
Okay. Uh-oh.
There,
Everybody's got stuff going on.
oh, yeah, where my brother works, where he used to work, off of Hildebrand Broadway. You know that AT&T building? There's
Oh,
that.
yeah, I
There's
went to
that
high
little.
school just down the street from there.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, well, right across UIW, there's that little cemetery. There's an angel missing its head, and every time I pass by there, and I pass by there a lot, I think about this episode. I think
Yeah.
somebody finally did it because they got tired of worrying about the stupid angel.
About blinking.
Yeah, no, it's pretty freaking cool, and I love the montage at the end of the episode where it shows gargoyles and other statues and
Mm-hmm.
people walking around. As long as people are looking towards them, they can't attack, right? And that was just so brilliant to end the episode that way. That yeah, the immediate threat, Carrie Mulligan's fine. They were able to defeat them, but where are the others? Because we know there are others.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so awesome. I love the way it ended.
Yeah, it really felt like Moffat took a lot of care and put a lot of heart and soul into this. He obviously spent a lot of time crafting it, and it shows. Now, the only thing that I can say negative about this is I had several friends who said that this should actually be the first episode that I ever watched, and I am incredibly grateful that I didn't, because if I had seen this first and then I'd gone back to Eccleston, I would have been like,
You would check that.
what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Like, I'm really glad that it is this oasis in the middle of this otherwise really uneven season 3, and I could be like, oh, this is what it should be. I finally get it, and I want to see more of this. And I just, it brought me in, and I can't, I can't be excited enough for this. Speaking of, this week, I think starting tomorrow actually, for people who collect those little Funko vinyl
Uh-huh.
bobblehead dolls, Weeping Angels come out.
Oh, no way.
So you can go get a Weeping Angel.
I'd have to do that. And I never buy those things.
I
Yeah,
have quite a few.
yeah. So now is the time to go and get one. I think they're supposed to be a Hot Topic exclusive, but
Ooh.
I've seen them online at Amazon and other places that are reselling them. So go check them out. I think you should be able to
Oh,
you should be
definitely.
able to find those.
You can get one.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I just man, I'm still thinking about this, and I couldn't go on after I was done with this. I was like, wow, really need to I really need to think about this and process this before I move on, because that's just cool. Oh, and the other thing, I had heard over and over again about, oh, this is a bunch of wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff.
That's true.
And this is the first time I've actually heard that in the show. So I was I was glad to finally see that. And I really loved that explanation where and how this worked out within the context of the episode, how that works as like a meta-contextual piece where he's talking about time isn't linear cause and effect, that it's wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff. And he's the only reason he knows that is because in the past he got a packet and was told he needed to read off this script, and the script was taken from watching one of the DVDs. And oh, it's just it's so brilliant how they put everything together. It's like watching a great heist movie, and it's why I love watching a great heist movie, because they think of everything and they think of how every little piece is going to fit in, and they're able to pull it off. And I felt like this was that cross between like a heist movie and science fiction and horror, and it just worked.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up about that he got the script at the end. Because if there's one knock on Moffat, it's his repetitive use of paradoxes. You're going to see that in the future. And sometimes I have an issue with that, sometimes I don't. But there is a character that's coming that when we see this character sees a doctor and says, greets him, and the doctor's like, "Who the heck are you?" And the character goes on to explain that, oh, we know each other intimately, and he's all confused. And that's a perfect illustration that he hasn't met this person yet, and this person in the now knows him, but his future self has not made the travel yet. It's kind of cool because it's that point in time thing. You never know where he's at and what kind of connections he's making. So the way that episode ended with him looking at her like, "I don't know you," but she gives him the script, that's kind of cool. There's going to be a lot more of that coming up in the future.
This is the second time I'm going to throw back to Star Trek: The Next Generation, but that's exactly what was going on with Picard and Guinan, Whoopi Goldberg's character.
Oh, that's
and they
true.
and they explore that, like, we didn't know each other, but yet Guinan, when she comes on the Enterprise, seems to know Picard incredibly well. And it's not until Picard goes back into the past to the time of Mark Twain in San Francisco to rescue Data that he meets Guinan for the first time.
Right.
And actually really love that. I love that as a kind of time travel trope of like, oh, we're star-crossed individuals, not star-crossed lovers, but people who have like an intimate bond, maybe a platonic intimate bond, but they know each other from across time. And I think that's kind of cool. I like that.
And I'm actually surprised it took them that long to do something like this. The character that he's talking about.
Good point.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but I don't want to ruin any of that.
Is
I
that
think he might be able to guess who it is. I think he's mentioned her before, Andy has.
Stop it. Stop talking.
okay? No, okay. Family Feud. Let's see if I can get this. Top 10 answers on the vote. Is it River Song?
I hate you.
Told you, I knew he knew who you were talking
I'm too smart. I've got this stuff all figured out. That's okay. That's not a spoiler for me. Again, I don't think the fact that I knew that there were weeping angels and that this episode was about weeping angels didn't spoil anything about this. If you told me that Carey Mulligan was in this episode, that wouldn't have spoiled it. Now, if you told me that Carey Mulligan was married to Mumford from the Mumford and Sons, that might have spoiled it. No, just kidding. Anyway, so I like that. Here, hang on. We've got beeping going on in my house. I know what you're doing, but it's making sound, you silly girl.
No, I'm just talking to them. Okay, I gotta go.
We both had children incursions at the same time.
Yeah.
Hell,
Say
even
hi.
I had a children problem today, and I don't have children.
Say
What's
hi.
up? There we go.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey, that's Melissa. She's a blue person. Okay, say hi, Melissa.
Hi, Melissa.
Okay.
Hi, Julia.
Bye, baby.
All right.
Okay.
Andy keeps bugging me about when we're going to have the family episode with all of us on there. We really need to look.
I get that question all the time.
Okay, so we need to look at season 4 and figure out where we're going to have our Kids Day episode, where they can watch like 1 or 2 episodes with us and review them. It doesn't have to be the whole podcast, but
Right.
I'm going to need you to figure that out because I don't know any of these. Okay, on to Utopia, and I guess we can talk about all 3 of these together because they're all kind of one piece.
There is so much good and so much bad
Yes.
on these last 3.
Yeah.
I think Utopia is the strongest of the 3 episodes. And for Whovians who have been Doctor Who fans since back in the day, they were so rewarded with Derek Jacobi. The Master is a character that is huge in the Doctor Who universe. Just huge. To give a little backstory, the Master and the Doctor were actually childhood friends. They've known each other for a long time. And they've been adversaries now for hundreds of years. Some of the best portrayals of the original Master happened in Doctor Number 3, John Pertwee, and Doctor Number 4, Tom Baker. And the Master, they played mental games with each other. It was like this big giant chess game that they used to play, and he largely disappeared. We saw him again during the Eighth Doctor's movie with what's his name, Julia Roberts' brother, Eric Roberts, playing the part of the Master, and it was kind of horrible. His portrayal, anyway, he was so over the top. So to see the Master come back and the way Derek Jacobi handled it was fantastic. I remember watching this, and I sort of got a creeping feeling like this might be happening. And when Derek Jacobi finally realizes who he is and he says his name, I almost squealed like a little girl. I was like, "Oh, he's back! I can't believe it! This is so awesome!"
Now,
and it worked out well. So this episode was just perfect to me.
So here's a question: does bringing back the Master through the device of the pocket watch in any way justify the existence of human nature and family of blood?
No.
No?
I mean,
It's a plot device.
yeah, I mean, for continuity's sake,
Yeah.
okay, but did we have to slog through that?
Yeah.
For that one thing, I mean, you know.
Yeah, they didn't need to waste 2 episodes to justify the pocket watch thing.
I mean, they pulled other stuff out of their ass all season. Why not just? I mean, you know, this is no time when they're gonna have continuity. What? You know.
I do remember when I saw the pocket watch, I did think like, oh, okay, I guess that's what they were trying to do with human nature. So there was that feeling, but I don't think it justifies it. But it was still pretty cool. The setup was pretty cool, and the fact that he was able to disguise himself as human and confusing himself about everything was just brilliant. And I love how Derek Jacobi seems like this lovable, crazy scientist for the longest time, and then he just turns evil as hell, like just evil. When he tells his assistant, like, you never shut up with your Chen Tho, and then he just kills her. Brilliant. That was brilliant. So the episode ends, and I'm thinking, we're going to get so much more awesome coming our way. And then it doesn't happen. I'm disappointed.
The one thing that's great, it's not just about bringing the master back and doing it in kind of a really great way, but this proves that, like, you don't have to make up some weird small-headed scorpion skeleton hybrid creature to make your villains absolutely scary. You know what I'm saying? Like, the thought of the master of all people being prime minister and having all of the might of Britain behind him at his disposal is terrifying. You know, he could do anything. What he ended up doing, you know, maybe not as grand. I mean, I guess it's grand. What am I trying to say? Like, not as quite as imaginative as they could have gone. I mean, he's a prime minister, you know. They could have done anything, and I think I'm not gonna say I was bored, but I felt like it started to drag a little, the story at some point.
That's the sound of drums, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It started. You know what I'm saying? Like, I liked it again. During the last of the Time Lords, you know, but it got interesting again. But it started to drag a little. I think they could have handled it better overall. But his introduction, though, when we first realized who this is and stuff, that was fantastic. And again, you don't need to make some crazy Absorbatron to have a monster who's scary, a villain who's really terrifying. Yeah, between this and the Blinking Angels right before it, it's like you created this brand new villain that's awesome, and then you brought back an old one. It felt like they were finally hitting a stride this season a little bit, but of course it's right at the end, you know.
Yeah.
But it salvaged the season for me overall, these last few episodes, because had they not done these, yeah, I might have stopped watching, to be honest. I might have just been like, sorry, I'm just not going to watch season 4, you know. But this story did drag in the middle, I felt. It's a little long.
I agree.
I think they could have put all 3 episodes, squished it into 2, and it would have been more taut. You know, it would have popped a little bit. But I'm just happy that Martha got to do something worthwhile. You know, she kind of saved the world, and yet the doctor sort of got all the credit, which made me mad. I mean, it was his idea. I know it was his plan, but she did all the work, you know. You know, when she's giving the speech and how she loves the doctor, I just wanted to pound my fist into something. You know, it's like, we're still going on with this, really. So it's like for every step forward they took 2 back again, and so it was frustrating. And yet overall, I do have to say I kind of enjoyed it, you know. And it's still, like I said, miles and away better than most of the crap that we had to trudge through to get here this season.
Here's the thing for me that okay, so Blink, we have the Weeping Angels, serious villain. It's scary, creepy, and then we get with the following episode with Utopia, we get the Master coming back, and he is just evil, and then we get hammy performance of the Master, and then we have a lot of stuff with Martha's family. And then it gets really silly when the Master fast forwards the Doctor's lifespan. It gets really silly.
Yeah.
And
in the cage, the little
it's just,
Doctor in the cage.
Yeah. It doesn't work. So like the momentum they built up with the previous 2 episodes, I mean, they should have kept with that momentum, and it kind of dies.
Hmm.
And like I said, they spend way too much focusing on Martha's mom and their issues,
Yeah,
and
see, I didn't, when you mentioned that earlier, from an earlier episode, I didn't mind so much, but using them here and then, making them maids. What is it
I
with
know.
making them maids again? I mean,
Again,
what?
ugh.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's just bad. And why keep them around? Like honestly, why would the master want to keep them? What's the purpose?
Yeah.
And why not just kill the? So there's a lot of decision making that just wasn't very good. But even with the Sound of Drums and the Last of the Time Lords, there's bits and pieces that are pretty good. As to how it all ends overall, there's that complete rip off from Flash, Flash Gordon, where somebody picks up a ring at the end, and I was like, Jesus Christ, you're really doing this? Like, I can't believe you did this. There's other ways of telling me the master survived. Don't do that stupid crap.
Yeah.
So they did that. I was completely unhappy. And then there's the whole Martha saying she's giving up on the whole thing. And
Yeah, her final speech, I think Andy said he wanted to say some things about that. As I know I have a few things to say about that.
you have the floor, Andy.
Sure. Well, I mean, it felt like a final moment of like radical self-respect and clarity. But it's like it took you 13 episodes to come here, and it completely abrogates every single thing that you're saying right now. You're like, I had a friend, and she spent all this time pining over someone, and it was wasted time. And that's exactly what I've done for the last season. And so I'm out of here because I'm not doing it anymore. It's like, I guess that's good that you finally came to that conclusion, and that Captain Jack helped you come to that conclusion, because they both shared some of that. They're like, when the doctor is like, oh, I know what it's like, putting on the perception changer thingies, and he's like, it's like when there's someone you fancy and they don't even know that you exist, and they both look at each other and they're like,
Oh.
he's like, oh, you too. Oh, I mean, it kind of bugs me, and I don't need the companion to fawn over the doctor. I want it to just be enough that a man and a woman can have crazy adventures through time with one another, and like not feel the need to like romantically couple.
Which will happen next season. It's like
Yeah.
they figured it out too late to do anything about Martha, but thankfully next season that will not be an issue. But yeah, it first of all, the fact that when she went into the TARDIS, he just started naming off where they want to go. You want to meet Agatha Christie or something. Like, he has so little regard for what she's been through, the hell she's been through over the last year, that he just thought she was going to come back and they were going to go off again. Like, hello, that's Russell T Davies tone deaf right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, in the doctor form. The fact that he just thought it was no big deal and they were going to keep going. This was obviously much bigger than any pickle they'd gotten into before. This was a world-ending event possible. Before they've gotten into some scrapes, but nothing like this. The thought that she would leave the family behind who's been in captivity for a year to go off and have more adventures or meet Agatha Christie, it really made me mad that he's so dumb. Such a smart man can be so stupid. And but then the fact that okay, I guess her first speech wasn't bad, but what she said, I spent the whole of the last year thinking I was the second best doctor or something. I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like that. You remember when she said that? That pretty much sums up my whole just anger over the Martha character. Do you understand that she would be that such a woman who clearly has skills and is smart would be put in a position to where she thought she was second best and that she was like in his shadow the whole time, and then he treats her kind of like dirt sometimes. That's my entire it's like she summed up everything that was wrong with her character over the season. It really made me mad. But then for her again, and then she left, and she should have left it at that, but then she goes back almost like she just wants to torture us some more. to talk about the love stuff. It just like they could have left that out. They could have left that second part out. You know what I'm saying?
My real issue with that scene is the doctor's real flippant
Yeah.
about it all. With Rose, he's like, "Oh, I lost Rose." With every other companion, he's like really heartbroken. With Martha's like,
Mhm.
you weren't feeling it. So it I didn't like that at all. There's a lot that I didn't like about the way it ended. Mainly the whole Master in the Ring thing. Earth spinning backwards, a la Superman. It just didn't work for me.
Oh, come on, you love that.
No, oh gee, don't even get me started with that. I want to punch Richard Donner in the face for doing that to us. Uh, but
I agree.
there's so much wrong, and the way it ends with him, it's almost the exact
Oh,
same.
that Titanic. Yeah.
Yeah, the what?
Uh-huh.
Like you're doing it again. So, I mean, that's my feeling on the last three episodes. Utopia was to me great, and then there's that promise that we're going to be getting a lot more greatness, and then we get a big fat thud, and that just explains the entire season for me. Um, One of the weakest seasons ever on Doctor Who. But I will say this about Martha: she gets off light as compared to all the other companions.
In
But yeah,
that
you
she
still
is.
her sanity intact, and
Yes, because
she's not trapped in another dimension.
all the other companions get screwed
Yes,
badly. So
that's
good for
true.
her. Yeah.
That's
Well,
the least they could do for her after making her a damn maid and like travel through time for a year to spread the story about how she loves a man who doesn't love her back. I mean, after all the crap they put her through and her family too, it's the least they could do.
well, I think this is its own commentary in some ways that the doctor was so aloof and didn't pay attention that he didn't even know or understand how badly he was treating Martha. And I think that is exactly the way that Russell T Davies was through this whole season. That like he didn't even give it a second thought that any of these things were bad or that there would be like to him it's like no, that's just the way it's done. And in some ways that shows me how far we've come even since 2007, which is not that long. uh, but in being able to look at issues of race and things more critically and applying this lens to it. And because I certainly didn't hear any feminist or racial outcry about Doctor Who in 2007, whereas I think if these were being aired today, that there would be a million Tumblrs launched about
Right.
SJWs against Doctor Who or something. I don't know, but what the one thing that I thought was kind of funny, and this was both in this episode, we mentioned the old Voldemort looking doctor where he's in the cage and I'm like, "Oh, we're going to have to get the blood of the father and the flesh of the servant and the blood of the enemy and to restore him or whatever." Um I thought it was interesting the transformation before that where he's in the old makeup. To me, it's kind of funny. He looked like someone took Matt Smith and melted him with a candle. And and then previously in the Family of Blood, where he's giving Joan all of the memories of what it would have been like of the two of them together, his older makeup, he looked a lot like Peter Capaldi.
Huh.
I don't go back and
I'm
look,
gonna have to revisit that.
go back
Yeah,
and look, but he looked like Peter Capaldi, and he looked like a melted Matt Smith candle.
Huh.
So
That's
I'm
funny.
I'm standing by that because I think that was just like some fun symmetry between the two of those. Yeah. So overall, I mean, come on, we didn't really think the Master was dead. So I mean, of
No.
course, he wasn't going to. Oh, I'm not. I'm going to choose to not regenerate. Oh, whatever. You've got some sort of escape hatch. You know
Right.
what? You know exactly what you're doing, and you'll be back, but you're not. you're not back
Yeah,
immediately.
but
So
the
yeah,
Flash Gordon ending, like, come on.
yeah, it was unnecessary. But I mean, there were tons of those pieces. I mean, one of the bigger problems that I had in the cliffhanger in Family of Blood and Human Nature was they're like, choose between your lover and your friend, and I'm like, hey, 1963 Batman called, and they want their tropes back. It's like
That's hilarious.
they just added a bunch of dumb stuff that really didn't need to be in
Right.
these episodes. But overall, I liked it. I liked a lot of what was in the Sound of Drums, but like I felt this had the kind of the same problems that Age of Ultron did, where you had this great villain, and then his final plan was really kind of comic booky and dumb.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, you got absolute world domination, but you're using it for something really dumb. So,
Right.
whatever. Oh, and one final thing, we finally got the first mention of Captain Jack as the face of Bo, and they brought that
Ah,
together.
yes.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you finally got that. Oh, you also got the explanation of the hand.
Oh yeah, we did get the explanation of the hand, so that was a lot of fun. Um, that was really cool. I was glad that they brought all of that together. It seemed like they were tying up some of those loose ends, those little breadcrumbs, and they did it better than they had in previous seasons. Like the whole thing with Rose as the bad wolf, like I didn't feel like there was any payoff there. I felt like they had been laying some breadcrumbs. Some of the breadcrumbs were stupid, like the watch, but they did end up bringing them together.
I agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. But I think overall, it's just a mediocre season at
Yeah.
best.
It was
Yeah.
like it felt like too little, too late. At the
Right.
end, other than Blink, I really think that most of the season was kind of a turd. Um, I it and even if Martha had turned out to be a badass, if they had spent any amount of time really developing her, let her do something other than be subservient to the Doctor, um, even then, I don't think most of the plots were really strong enough to be a good season. You know what I mean? It would have just been like putting lipstick on a pig or something. Yeah, I was really disappointed in this season overall. I'm glad I didn't stop watching because for a while I thought I might. But yeah, with Martha, just so many missed opportunities to do something really great with that character. And the worst part is that Russell T Davies, he's a gay man, and you would think he'd understand what it's like to be treated differently by society and how to try and make some kind of commentary on that. I understand like sexual orientation and race are not the same thing, but they both belong to communities that are treated differently, and you'd figure he'd understand that and have some awareness of what he was doing with this character, and it just never happened. Never happened.
Yeah, it would have been really great to take Human Nature and the Family of Blood out and put in an episode where Martha got to do something really cool. Like take her back to the time of like Nefertiti or like another like Nubian queen in Egypt and have it be like very empowering for people of color
Right.
and
Right.
like they're in charge and at the height of a beautiful civilization that I always thought that uh, ancient Egypt definitely had something to do with space travel or time travel or something like that. There's places for them to be able to explore with that. And like if I'd been in the writer's room back then, that's what I would have pitched
Right.
as a good two-parter episode to take them back and have it be empowering. But I
Or
think they
yeah,
yeah.
or have a race of aliens be the powers behind apartheid and have Martha be the leader of the resistance movement in South
Uh,
Africa. I mean,
Wow.
there's lots of positive ways you can go and use her character. And she's shown that she's smart and she's action oriented because she takes charge. She's not the damsel in distress. We saw it throughout the whole season, but they failed her badly. And I wish she would have gotten one season with Stephen Moffat, because I guarantee you he would have used her right.
Nah,
Now,
I
now
don't know.
tell me, she ends up on Torchwood, right?
For a few episodes.
For a couple of episodes, right?
Just a couple of episodes. Okay, so she's not in it. So, I
No.
mean, moving on though, I mean, we will have. I mean, I guess I'll get to see her a little bit more. Is she in this season of Torchwood coming up? Am I going to
Yeah.
see her
Yes, the second season.
Second season. Yeah.
in the second season? Okay, so here's what I'm thinking moving forward. If I'm going to watch this in the actual order that they came out, the next episode is actually I'd go ahead and watch the Christmas episode, Voyage of the Damned, and then immediately following that, then Torchwood started airing 2 weeks later in season 2, and then I can start watching the first few episodes of that. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Sleeper, To the Last Man, Meet. Uh, then it goes on to Adam, Reset. Are there any good like stopping points in there where I should be like? It looks like Adam and Reset is a two-parter that they aired on the same day.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I should probably stop either before or after that.
Let me see.
Advice? What do
Let
y'all
me
think?
see. Let me get to the episode guide thingy. So we're doing season 2, right?
Yeah.
Um, you're gonna like a couple of the actors coming up. I would stop at Meet. Yeah. Because or you can stop at Adam. That way you can pick up Reset, and Reset is when we see our good old Martha Jones come back.
Oh, okay. So even though those aired on the same day, it would be okay to stop in between the
I,
two of those.
yeah, I think so, because I don't remember them uh, being coupled together as one long narrative.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I'm going to get to that. I'll be looking forward to that, hopefully. But we should talk about a great movie that's coming out this weekend um, that Mark and I both had the opportunity to see, and that is Disney Pixar's Inside Out. Uh, Before we even talk about the movie, the one thing that stands out in this entire movie to me, and I can't stop singing it, is that song from the opening uh, cartoon, the lava
Oh,
about
lava.
the lonely volcano, and I want to see that again so badly, and I want that song so I can just like sit in my car and listen to ukulele and beautiful singing
I
about
want
true
someone
love.
to love.
I have a dream and I hope it will come true. Oh, just I can't stop singing that song. It's so good. And they did more in 3 minutes with that than most movies are able to do in 90 or 120 minutes with a love story. It's absolutely beautiful. Oh, and keep your eye out because either Crush or another similar looking sea turtle shows up. Did you see? Yeah,
Yes, with a significant other.
with a significant other. That's the beauty is all the animals are paired off, and that's the
You
I
know,
think
I'm wondering if it was based on some kind of Hawaiian mythology, because it looks like an actual mountain, with a waterfall. Like I think I've seen this before in a picture somewhere, and I
yeah.
wonder if there's like some kind of traditional myth about how that mountain formed, and it's this.
That's a good question. I don't know. I just thought it was beautiful. It was beautifully done, beautifully sung, uh, and gave me all the feels that I expect from Pixar. Like, man, last year with Feast, that little short about the
The
dog,
dog, yeah.
that that thing made me made me cry, it made me love, it made me do everything with zero dialogue and just oh they've done it again. They've got the magic. I love those shorts.
Yeah, before we start talking about the movie, I have a theory that Pixar has kids holed up somewhere and they have them in tubes where the feelings are sucked out because they get uh, these emotions, these feelings that kids are going through. Like they understand it. I don't know how they do it.
I think it's because they employ really smart, really good people who are in touch with those emotions. And like you notice with Lava, it's like the director was the writer and he was the singer, and it's like this was something that he came up with and he conceived of all himself, and it's just absolutely amazing. And I think that they do the same thing with with a lot of their other projects. Pete Docter, the director of Inside Out, who also directed Ratatouille and it just and Up, he just gets it. I don't I like I just think there are certain people who are like emotional geniuses, the same way people are like intellectual geniuses, and they just understand how to get to those core feelings. So yes, the idea of children in tubes and having those emotions sucked out, it would be very like that's very like Bond villain of them, and I kind of wish that were true because that would be kind of cool. But I think it's just these people are geniuses.
Yeah, here's the thing. The emotional resonance in this movie is so true. I felt the way I felt when I was a kid watching this movie. Like I remember feeling this way. It was almost a strange outer body experience. I didn't know what to expect with this movie, to tell you the truth, and the trailers really didn't give out too much. I knew it was going to be about voices in your head, or I thought it was because of what we saw in the trailer, but I wasn't too sure what to expect, and I honestly I thought it was going to be the equivalent of Cars, to where I was going to go and say, it's got great graphics, but it's okay. Uh, but man, it took me by surprise, and the emotions I was feeling watching it, seeing my daughter next to me watching it, knowing that my daughter is going to soon feel the same things that the central character is going to be feeling, and remembering the confusion I felt when I was a kid, it was all it was perfect, Andy. Like I honestly remember feeling the way I felt back then, and I don't know how Pixar does this. I don't understand it, but it's beautiful. The end result was beautiful.
Yeah, let me go back and reset so people actually know what we're talking about in case they haven't seen the trailers. Inside Out is about the voices and feelings inside your head, centered around an 11-year-old girl named Riley, who her parents have moved from their home in Minnesota to a new home in San Francisco. And over the 4 or 5 day period of this film, all of the tragedies and feelings of a major move like this befall her. And we see what's going on inside of her head based on the 5 different emotions that she's feeling at the time. They're led by Joy, who is played by Amy Poehler, who just, she embodies joy so much in this. It's like, if you watched Parks and Recreation, this is like Leslie Knope times 100 plus a diabetic sugar coma. It's like, it's just, she is just, over the top, saccharine joy and great. And when Riley's first born, her first feeling is joy. And then soon she is joined by Sadness, who's played by Phyllis Smith, who was on The Office, playing Phyllis. And again, great casting on this, and she's just kind of, a grumpy rain cloud person. And the ongoing joke is like everybody has a purpose. Joy, obviously, she brings joy. Anger, He gets mad at stuff, and he keeps everything fair. Fear keeps them safe, and disgust keeps them from being poisoned, both physically and socially. But no one really knows what sadness's purpose is. Really quickly, fear is played by Bill Hader from Saturday Night Live. Anger is Louis Black, again, perfect casting. And disgust is Mindy Kaling from The Office and The Mindy Project. Just amazing casting on all of those roles, and the real it felt like they spent a lot of time musing on this, what is the purpose of sadness. And I think through their journeys of what's going on inside of little Riley's head and how she's dealing with all of the emotions of moving, they come to a good understanding of what that is. Not to give away too many spoilers, but my only concern is my 10-year-old loved it. She absolutely got it, and I have the exact same feelings as you, Mark, of like, oh, she's going through this this exact same thing, and how kind of scary that is. But my 7-year-old was a little bit bored, and so I'm worried. Is this a little bit too high concept, or is this just fine for them? So that's my only real concern about that. I said the exact same thing about Pete Docter's Ratatouille, and boy was I wrong. Kids love that movie. So,
I think what's going to help is Bing Bong.
Oh, Bing Bong.
Isn't it so funny that this character that comes around and you think, oh, well, he's going to be the comedic foil. Nothing special about him. He's just an imaginary character. And I almost came to tears because of him.
Yeah.
He's the reason why I kind of had to like bite a little hard on my tongue. Because what they do with him, and I really can't say too much without risk of spoiling, but God, they use him perfectly. And Richard Kind is perfectly cast as Bing Bong. But this is the thing about Pixar. I mean, they made me care about an imaginary character who's made out of cotton candy. Like, it's just so weird.
And who cries candy.
Who cries candy? It shouldn't add up, and it shouldn't make sense, but it does, and it works perfectly. And I love how we're given an explanation that it's okay to be sad. Like, that's what it teaches kids. You're gonna be sad sometimes. It's okay. It's fine.
Not only it's okay to be sad, but it's empowering to be sad. Again, not to spoil it, because that's part of the journey. But it shows the real purpose of that, and why it's joy. There's this great power struggle where everybody kind of wants Joy to always be in charge of the control console in her head, and they definitely don't want sadness touching it, and nobody wants that. And that's our human nature. That's what we want. But sadness is important, and sadness is a part of life, and without sadness there can't be joy, and they work together, and that's very like Zen, but man, just stated so well in this. Again, I don't know if I hope kids will get it. I think they will.
I'm pretty sure they will. Julia came out of it like loving it, and she was talking about all these different parts. One of her favorite parts was when disgust uses anger in a really comedic way to get joy and sadness back. I don't remember that scene.
Yeah, that was great. Oh.
She loved it, and you know what? It explains that. Okay, so when there's this part where anger, one of the emotions, takes over, and he's so committed to his course of action that even when he knows it's all gonna go bad, there's no way to turn to change course. this is what happens with kids. And you know, I mean, we were there. You and I, we were younger. We were young once, and we used to get so angry, and we would say things and do things and not think of the consequence. And even when we knew it, it started to settle in on us that it was wrong. We still didn't give in because that was our course of action. And Pixar, you know, they use it perfectly in the movie. Whereas, you know, we felt bad being angry, but we're going to stay angry because we feel right doing so. So
Yeah,
there's,
because
yeah,
it
go
was
ahead.
great that they put it that like anger's big concern is about things being fair,
Right,
and when things aren't fair, then he gets really mad, and it's like, and especially to a kid, well, geez, and especially to an adult, like there's nothing that makes me more indignant and angry than lack of fairness about something. I mean, I'll go off about income inequality or racism or sexism, and all of that essentially comes down to an idea of fairness. Like that's what really makes me mad.
right.
So yeah, I really like that, and just amazing casting. Uh, the way that they explain all of this, and the way that Riley's brain works, and it's kind of like a big computer, and it has core memories, and she has a long-term memory area, and memories that get forgotten, and it just it's it all works.
Right.
And what I'd really love to see is a child psychologist break down this movie and talk about how correct it is or what its deficiencies are, because it feels very real to me,
Right.
but I don't know. So
It feels authentic. It really does. I was so impressed with this movie. I honestly thought it was going to be, you know, this overly saccharine movie, you know, aimed directly at kids, lots of colors, lots of funny. But no, it's very, very deep. And I just love that Pixar understands this. In Up, we were hit with miscarriage, whereas we don't know how to talk about miscarriages to kids, but yet they did perfectly, beautifully. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand how Pixar does it. Kudos to them. May they continue making movies forever and ever, way past I'm dead, because they totally get this.
yeah, and again, my number one concern with this is that this movie seems so very adult. And will kids get it? Well, our kids did, and the other kids in the theater certainly did. So that seems to be a good focus group, that yeah, kids will like this. But man, this has a lot of really, really deep adult themes in it.
It does.
And that's my only concern, is that a lot of that will go over kids' heads. But maybe, my daughter will watch this now umpteen million times on streaming over and over again, because she loves it, and Joy is fun, and there's beautiful colors, and Bing Bong is hilarious. But then when she's older, she'll be like, man, that movie was really deep.
It was on the
So
nose.
so that's all I can hope for. Um, I still don't know quite where I'm going to come down on rating it. I'm probably feeling like somewhere like an 8 out of 10. Um, I feel like maybe it deserves more, but I have these feelings in the back of my head that it's like not. If I was rating it just for me, and if this were an adult movie, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is a 9 out of 10. This is really brilliant. I'm still concerned kids are gonna just be like, what?
I'm
So
giving it a 9 because Pixar has focused on young children for a long time. There is that demographic of kids who are going through a confusing time. The preteen onset puberty kids, this gets them. This is them. And I think, you see, if we talk to these kids as adults, that they just shut down and they're ashamed of the entire conversation. They want nothing to do with us. But I think they're going to see themselves in this movie. And I think Pixar is going to do what we can't do as adults. Just talk to them and tell them, hey, all this stuff that you're going through, this confusion, there's a reason for it. And you're going to be okay. It's going to be fine. You can work your way through this. I think
Yeah,
it's going to hit that audience, and I think this is going to work.
I hope so. It's really beautiful. And again, if I'm rating just Lava, that's a 9.5 out of 10. I love that thing. I love that so much. So awesome. Well, that about wraps us all up for this episode. We went a little long, but I think we had great conversations. There's so much to talk about between Blink and The Master and Inside Out. Next week, we will come at you. I will get to Voyage of the Damned, and then the first 4 or 5 episodes of Torchwood. We'll see how far I get in through that. I'd like to thank everyone at Big Shiny Robot for hosting our website, especially Tom Winkley. Tom, I know you and your wife Anna lost one of your pets this week. It's always tough to lose a fur baby. Our hearts go out to you and to your wife, and hope all's well with you guys. And thanks to everyone for listening. Feel free to send us a message, hit us up on Twitter as I live tweet what's going on at WhoVirgin. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/WhoVirgin, and of course at our website at WhoVirgin.com. And until then, we will see y'all next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
And that's over.
All right. So, Melissa, did you listen?